All right, I am here. Should have a camera on me. And it looks like it is 1 o'clock. So let me, something's moved around my desk. I can't see very well. Okay. Let me get attendance marked down. Where was I marking that at? There's marking it out. So we've got Brittany, Kelly, and Michael. Now I've got the recording going, so we're recording good. And it's been a nonstop day so far. Once I got here, so I haven't even, I'm not sure what y'all are on. Let me look on that real quick. I know y'all are sitting there going, well, you should know that. That's not what I wanted. And we're on module 16 and 17 this week. And your test should be active out there, if I remember right. That I should have said it activated for this week. So that should already be active out there for y'all. Let me go into Netacad now so I can see what in the world it is we're doing this week. I guess, oh, there it is. I'm looking for Netacad and it says Cisco, just to confuse myself. So let me log on there and then I'll go back and see what in the world it was. 16 and 17, okay. If you have not completed the packet tracer course yet, please get it done. I haven't gone back out in a week or so, in the last week, to see see who else completed and transfer across those grades again on that. Apparently I put y'all's test actually into the calendar. I'm still trying to figure, from what they told me in training I was in a week ago, I can't do what we used to could do. So 16 is attacking the foundation, and 17 is attacking what we do, which actually is looking at IP services and such. So let me, wait a minute. Was that where I was at? I don't know. That's not 16. Okay, this has actually got IP version 4 and 6. I was in the wrong module. This thing doesn't always jump things nicely. So they go through and introduce to you a little bit on IPv4 headers, and then they talk about IPv6 headers. The header for 4 is obviously much bigger than 6. Let's do this. Let me do this. I'm going to go through the PowerPoint on it, and I'll pull that one up for you, and we'll just walk through the PowerPoints for 16 and 17. So let me flip to that. And I've got them out there through 22, I think 23, 22. And I'm working on 23 right now. So I have to go through and get them compliant with ADA, and Cisco does not have them at all compliant. So I'm having to put alt tags in on all the images, and then they don't have titles on any of the slides. So I'm having to do that on all of these. So let me get that started. And I just ate up my whole screen with all kinds of stuff that I'm not sure. What we got going on here. Okay. Doesn't look like I can do a show that I'm going to have to do, because if I try to do a show, it wants to eat up screens, and then I can't get to y'all stuff. So we won't do that. I'm going to share the screen, but it's not going to be in show format. You're actually going to see the setups of the slides over to the side on it. Doing some of this stuff sometimes is not work exactly like it's supposed to. So it looks like I probably need 3 screens here. So now at this point we should have, you should be seeing the screen, the PowerPoint on it. Is that correct? Because that's what I'm seeing it as on there. Good. Okay, so we're going to go through 16 and 17, and we'll go through rapidly. Let me go through a couple of things real quick before I start this. Thursday and Friday are student holidays. Faculty has got workshops all day, both days, from like 8:30 to 4 o'clock each day. On Friday, I know 3:30 is actually when it's supposed to end, but I've got a session I'm in charge of then for a group of the faculty. I'm a leadership committee chairman for distance ed, and we meet at 2:30 to 3:30. Hopefully we'll be done before then, but that we may, none of your faculty, full-time faculty members may be answering email at all either of those 2 days, because I say we're going to be, it's virtual, we'll be sitting at our desk doing on it, so we may be able to at times, or we may be having to watch more carefully and not be able to do other stuff. So we'll just see what happens. So you may not be getting answers back on emails from me and such on Thursday and Friday. Grading wise, I was caught up through yesterday afternoon. Actually, it was ahead some because I actually graded some stuff that was due yesterday. Tomorrow, after I teach my class, because I do have that one class in person Monday and Wednesday morning, then I've got to get the discussions done, and then I'll try to work on some other stuff on it. So that's where that all stands. Next week, Thursday and Friday next week, I'm speaking at a conference. Actually, it's virtual. It's in North Carolina, but it's virtual, so I'll be speaking with them. I don't remember the times on that. On it, actually, I think it's Wednesday and Thursday. The more I think about it, yeah, I think it's Wednesday and Thursday, because I'm thinking I got a session at 10 o'clock on Wednesday, which will work, because my class ends at 10, but I always let them out a few minutes early. But ooh, that's not a good week on it. And then I don't remember the times on the others, so I'll maybe not much on next Thursday and Friday, because I got 4 hours between those 2 days gone up with that. And then the following week, we got registration starting somewhere in here. 7/14. The following week should be a regular week, and I think that's registration week actually starts, or it may start next week. I don't remember which one of the two, for summer. And then the last week of the month, that starts the 29th, and goes through April the 2nd. That is spring break, and I'm intending to take the week off. So you may not be getting in touch with me during that week. And there's nothing due that Monday, and we won't have these sessions that week either, because it is holidays for the students, and the faculty can take off on annual leave for that week. And I definitely need to do some of that. I'm hoping to get away and do something. So Now, let's look at what's in 16 and 17 real briefly. So they've got a short little discussion on the IP version 4, IP version 6. That IP, they just remind you it's connectionless protocol. So actually, it's going to do the connection part through other layers. And it doesn't make any effort about that the address is correct or anything else. So it's real easy to do some spoofing and such on it. IP version 6 is actually more secure than 4. Then they show you the IP version 4 packet header. It's got your addressing on it, which obviously the source IP address and destination IP address on IP version 4 are just 4 bytes long. It's got a time to live on it. The protocol is which version of the protocol is it going through off of there. It's got a checksum to make sure it's all there, and the version, so you know it's 4. 6, whoops. So then they go through and talk about each one of those. The version lets us know that is version 4 of IP, and differentiated services. Used to be type of service. It's the priority, and it actually was labeled at priority at one time, but is this packet got a higher priority than others? The total length of how long is the entire packet, the header, and the actual data. And then they tell you about the other things. Time to live is just expressed in terms of number of routers that it can still go through before it dies. That keeps things from just floating out there forever. And then the protocol is what's the next level protocol. So that's up on the transport layer of, is it going to use ICMP, TCP, or UDP normally nowadays? That's when we get to that layer of the transport. Well, we're not doing that in this class. I'm mixing this class up with the 2451. So those are the common ones on the transport layer. The header checksum is just a checksum on the header, where it does a calculation, comes up with a number and puts it on there. When it's received, it does calculation again, make sure it's the same number. It's a reliability check. And then they show you how you can do some of that with video and Wireshark look stuff. IP version 6 packet header is a much simpler one. They don't put as much stuff in it anymore. Version is the same as we saw before. And then the IP addresses are actually 16 bytes long instead of 4 bytes long. So, because they're going to be 132 bits. That doesn't add up. We'll get to it in just a second. So the version, same as on the version 4.1, except this marks it as 6. Traffic class is similar to differentiated services. So it's a similar type thing. Things that you really don't need to worry too much about. So a lot of these you don't have a problem on. It's called hop count instead of time to live on this one. You do need to be aware of that one. And then the source IP address and the destination, that's 128 bits long, which would be 16 bytes long. I was correct on that after all. So it's 4 bytes for IP version 4, and it's 16 bytes for IP version 6. The 6 ones are normally just expressed in hexadecimal. So just be aware of that one. So you got that. Let's see. Whoa. Sorry about that. There's 16 bytes long. I'll get that straight. Yeah, on IP version 6. They're 16 bytes long, and that's 32 hexadecimal characters. And then in IP version 4, they're 4 bytes long, and that's expressed in decimal numbers normally. And it's 4 sets of decimal numbers that range from 0 to 255 each, separated by periods. All right, and then they show you where you can go and look at the headers also for IP version 6 in Wireshark. And then they tell you about some different vulnerabilities in IP. ICMP attacks, those you'll see quite often. And actually, that is how DOS attacks or DOS attacks are quite often done, is that they're usually using ICMP attacks, which actually use ping normally to do it. And so the DOS attack is the denial of service attack. And what you're doing is that what they're doing is that they're running a massive number of pings normally at a machine or a network, and those are high priority packets. And so the machine bogs down trying to respond to all of those. The DOS came from one single server. DDoS is distributed DOS, and that comes from a number of different servers, and quite often they'll use bots to put them out there and then have them set to go off at a certain time. That makes it much more difficult to block them because they're coming from a whole different places, where if it's just a DOS, you just got to block everything coming from whatever that address is. Their firewalls will do a lot of blocking on these nowadays. That is also the reason that you cannot ping a lot of different sites, that they block all pings on it. Although the modern firewalls look at it and go, okay, we'll let through 5 or 6 pings, but if there's more than that from a certain location, then we're going to block them. And so then that you can use ping to confirm connectivity. But there are a lot of places that just block them, and that was the way it was done for a good while there to stop those. Address spoofing attacks, that they'll just spoof the source IP address to make it look like it's got that the packet came from a different place than it really came from. Man in the middle, that one you'll see a lot of times. They've got it abbreviated as MITM. I see it abbreviated MTM a lot of times also. And that's where your threat actor sets them up into your network or outside your network, between there and another spot. And so they've set themselves up in between, and they just eavesdrop on all the traffic going right across there. Ideally, in their opinion, is to set up inside the network, and that they're then picking up all your traffic on your network and capturing it all, inspecting it, and then forwarding it to wherever they want to do and get the information they want off of it. They get in, and that they're doing it inside. They're doing a man in the middle from inside your network, and that they're hijacking the session. But it's ways for them to steal information. So then they go through and they talk about the ICMP attacks, which I just already did for you, and that they tell you about all of those and the type messages that can occur. So the echo request is just where it's requesting to verify that it really is there. Unreachable is when it can't find it ever and get there. The mask reply is to map. That is a way to map an IP network and so on there. So I've already went through on that. So then they go through and have a video to show you on that stuff. I would encourage you to go into these PowerPoint slides and watch these videos. Also, a lot of these are actually in your curriculum, so they're there for you to watch in the curriculum. So, well, I'm not going to go through them because they're there, and I've also got the slides out there in course documents for you. Amplification and reflection attacks, they mentioned those. Amplification, that the threat actor forwards the ICMP echo request messages to many hosts and they contain the IP address of the victim. And what they're doing is they're sending them out to a ton of places, and so then that in turn means those places lock them down and don't allow them to use it. Reflections, when those hosts all reply to the spoofed address, so it's grabbed a hold of them, amplifies them out to all those places, and those machines then reply to all of those pings, basically, those ICMPs, and boom, they come back and they overwhelm that machine. And it's also called a Smurf attack. And there's a reason for it being Smurf, and I can't remember right off the bat what it was, but it associated with Smurfs. Spoofing attack, I actually talked about those a little bit already. That you're making yourself appear to be something different than where it's from, to be something different. And then if they do, depending on how they do this, spoofing, whether it's non-blind or blind. If it's non-blind, they can see between the host and the target. If it's blind spoofing, then you can't see it. So they do a little bit of discussion on that one for you. And then they talk about TCP and UDP vulnerabilities. So now we're up on the transport layer. And in TCP, remember, you set up a session on it and then window the stuff across on it. So TCP, make sure it is reliable delivery, it has flow control, and that it knows that it gets there. So on that one, you do need to be aware there is a three-way handshake between the two machines before communications even starts. And basically, that's just like a telephone conversation, that machine 1 contacts machine 2, sends a sync signal. Machine 2 replies back to machine 1 acknowledging the sync, and then machine 1 sends back and says, okay, we're established. Basically, look at that just like on a telephone call. Machine 1 has called machine 2. Machine 2 answers the phone. And then machine 1, after they hear hello from machine 2, that machine 1 says hello back to machine 2. Yeah, small and numerous. Okay, good. Thank you. And then you start having the conversation. Well, that's the same thing happens with TCP, and that's a three-way handshake right there. But that's the same thing if you do a telephone call correctly on it, where you call, there's a hello from the person you called, and then there's a hello from you, and then you know both of you are on the line at that point. Does everybody follow on that? So be aware of that one. And then TCP attacks, that it will go in there and spoof it as somebody different on it, and it can do floods of syncs across on it, and that trying to set up all those conversations, because it will have multiple conversations going on at one time normally, and that the threat actor can go in there and find the ones that use the TCP and proceed to send a massive number of sync requests across, and that locks everything up and they can't do anything then. So a TCP reset attack actually is used in there, that it picks up the traffic on it and it proceeds to reset the connection, and it sends a reset command actually across, then it goes and resets and starts the connection again, because it finishes it and resets it and starts all over again. And so it messes everything up on that. Session hijacking, that the threat actor gets in there and takes over an already authenticated host as it's communicating with the target, and the threat actor spoofs the IP address of the host and figures out what's the next sequence number, because in all of that, and then when they're sending, there's sequence numbers on everything, so it has to get the right sequence number in there, because the sequence numbers give away rather than which conversation is it. So if it does manage to get those sequence numbers and sends the ACK to the other one, the machine starts sending to them, to it, instead of to the machine it should be sending to. So you can hijack a call on it. UDP is connectionless. It's unreliable. It does not guarantee that stuff's delivered. You just send it and hope it gets there. Okay. It has very little overhead to it. And so it makes it much faster to send information across. So UDP will be used a fair amount also. UDP attacks, that it's not got encryption either on it, but you can add it to it. But you can encrypt it on another level for that matter. And that with a UDP flood attack, it's just massively sending stuff across using UDP on it. And that they note there that with a flood attack, it could be going through all the known ports, trying to find which ports are closed, and then it wants to send a message with a port and get an unreachable message to find out which ones to use. So that there is 16. So let's glance at 17. So I got to open another PowerPoint. So let's do that. And I can't do that. I'm going to have to shut PowerPoint down. And so we're going to lose that. And then I'll start as soon as I open this one up, because I got to go back in and get the PowerPoint for 17. Because since I'm just sharing just that, not the whole thing, because y'all know what happens if I go to share the whole thing. So now I got 17 opening. The bad part is keep seeing the email in the background when I do that, and so then I get distracted for a second because I'll see emails and I'm thinking I need to answer those. All right, so now I'll share again, and I'll share the PowerPoint again. So this is 17, and there, y'all should see it now. So I'm assuming it is. So we'll go through 17. 17 is looking at attacking what we do. First part looks at IP services. ARP vulnerabilities is the first one they mention. Hosts are sending out the ARP request to find out the MAC address for a particular IP address. Remember, that occurs next layer down from where we were. So now we're talking down on the data link layer, and that it sends back the IP address. Now, a threat actor can sit there and poison the ARP cache. And what it does is it goes in there and puts in different IP addresses of where the threat actor's machine is for different MAC addresses. And so then when there's the ARP request made, it doesn't get the IP address for the right MAC address. It doesn't get the right MAC address for the correct IP address correction, because we're looking up with an IP address and getting a MAC address with ARP. And so they've got it in there where the MAC addresses for all of the IPs are going to a fake machine, a real machine, but it's not a machine that should be on our network. It's the threat actor's machine. And so they can steal all kinds of information that way. So that's with ARP poisoning, that it's putting in there wrong information. And so then the threat actor will respond with a spoofed gratuitous ARP reply that when there's the ARP broadcast, it sends back, it's really not been poisoned in there. What it's doing is going in when there's the ARP broadcast for wanting to know what's the MAC address for that IP address. It's responding and saying, this is the address, and blocking the legitimate machine and taking over from the legitimate machine that should give that MAC address. And so then it gets put in there and it is incorrect in the information that the original machine that made the request was requesting for. DNS attacks are ones that the queries are answered incorrectly on it. You got me on that one right there, between the spoofing and the poisoning. Yeah, because the spoofing, you're just should be, and I'm not going to stay completely on this, but with spoofing, you're faking the address across on it, whereas when the poisoning, you're actually putting in the information into the tables with the wrong information on it, is my understanding on it, but that may not be totally correct. So go do your research, Nicholas. That I haven't looked at that again real closely, but that's where it should be on the direction of. But with the DNS, with the poisoning, that they're putting it, and notice here that with poisoning, they're changing the information that it resolves with, so it sends out wrong information on it that has poisoned the tables on it. And then they mention on the amplification or reflection, that's where it sends it out incorrectly, like we mentioned before in amplification and reflection, that it sends out a whole bunch that respond back and we can lock everything down off DNS. Fast flux, they mentioned that one to you, that allows them to hide their information, and that they're changing the DNS IP addresses continuously. So they're doing on that. And then there's a double flux, and that allows them to rapidly change host names to IP addresses, which is really not, which is DNS, yeah. So you're continuously changing the mappings rapid basis. And then the domain generation algorithms, since it's using an algorithm, it's calculating new addresses the whole time, and those are random choices that it assigns to them. So it even gets it more crazy on it. And then it says on domain shadowing, it gets the domain account credentials, and then it creates multiple subdomains. And remember, you can have subdomains within a domain. And a lot of times that's what that first part is on a domain address, on the URL. So you got subdomain and then the domain. And then the subdomain points to the malicious servers, and that doesn't let the original owner know something about the parent domain, because the parent domain is still correct, but it's got subdomains on it now. And for instance, if you got the www subdomain and point it off to the wrong place, well, obviously it's all going to the wrong location. DNS tunneling is just a way to get in, so that they can get into your system, and that they are fixing your different DNS records to, that they're altering them to point to the wrong places. And so they suggest there to stop it that you've got to have a filter that's going to check your DNS traffic regularly. DHCP gets mentioned again right here, because DHCP, if you can change, and remember, you can have multiple DHCP servers on a network. And so you can set up a malicious one on there, and because when a client comes on, it sends out a request, broadcasted for a discover message, basically saying, I need an IP address. and then the different DHCP servers respond back. Well, you can set up a fake one in there and give them wrong addresses, and then it won't work on that network, but you can steal the traffic. Now, I keep saying y'all, but don't y'all do that stuff, okay? So it could tell them the wrong default gateway, which sends it out the wrong direction, sends it to this spoofed machine instead of sending it out on the network. And so that gets them into the man-in-the-middle attack. It could send the wrong DNS server. So that change on where it points to for the DNS server, instead of pointing to the one it should, it points to the wrong one. Or it could have a wrong IP address. And that can set up all kinds of weird things on it. My throat's getting dry, sorry. But DHCP you can do some interesting things on that one, so you do want to be careful with those. Then they look at the DNS. They have a lab for you to go through and look at DNS traffic and how the DNS is doing. Enterprise services, they mentioned about HTTP and HTTPS. And that is that your problem is people have set up or have gone in and compromised web pages, or that they point you to a wrong page that is a malicious page. If you are doing anything that's got PII, personal identifiable information, or anything like credit card numbers or anything else, you want to always make sure it's using HTTPS. However, HTTPS does not guarantee that the site that you're connecting to is a full, reliable site. The only thing HTTPS is doing for you versus HTTP is that HTTPS is sending the traffic encrypted across the network. So it can't be stolen in the process. But it could be a wrong page, and they could actually use encryption HTTPS on it and have redirected that you went to the wrong page. You went to go to the Bank of Dwight, and there actually is a Bank of Dwight in Illinois, or at least last I knew there was. But you went to go to the Bank of Dwight, and instead of typing in the name of the bank correctly, because you remember I own the bank, so is it the Bank of Watt that I have my money in, or is it the Bank of Dwight I have my money in? Well, somebody had figured out that one, that I own the bank, which I really don't. I have no association with that bank. I have had stock and one or two other banks in the past, but it was just like $1,000 worth. And unfortunately, banks I bought stock in have gone under. So that's not a good sign for me to buy stock in a bank. But it was just a little bit of money that it wasn't really anything. That I had an opportunity 2 times to buy some when they opened one up. And so I jumped in both times just to try. But I say I spent like $1,000 on it. But in this case, you go to Bank of Watt. I think you're going to the Bank of Dwight, because you know me and you're going, yeah, but what did he call his bank that I got my money sitting in? So you go out there on that. They've set up the thing to look similar to Bank of Dwight, and that it all looks, the logo looks similar to what you're used to, and then it has you log in. Well, when it has you log in, actually what it does is it steals your name and your password at that point, and then tells you that things aren't working right probably. And so, and then you realize, and then you go to log back on, you can go to get back on and go to the right place, and you get in. Unfortunately, in the meantime, you gave them your username and password, and let's assume that you had lots of money, but we're not really sitting here with that crowd. It's not who's all sitting around watching this video. They got there first, and they have cleared out your bank. So you had won the lottery earlier this week, but you hadn't told anybody about it, and you had them direct deposit $6 million in your account. Well, you get into your account and discover, nope, you've not got any money left in there, and somebody is outspending your $6 million elsewhere in the world. So that's what you can, and it looked legitimate all the way through to you, or that it was that they've set it up as Bank of Dwight, but instead of DWIGHT, it was DWYGHT, because they knew some people don't know how to spell Dwight. And have set up a site that looks just like it, and then it blocks you on it. HTTPS is not a guarantee that you're in good shape, but it makes it much more, assuming the site does use HTTPS, then your stuff can't be stolen along the way. But they could have one of the things that that they could have on it, that it could be misdone on it. And that's what a lot of them do.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Where
is Lauren Ellsbury's office? Can you tell me? Lauren Ellsbury?
That would be the complete opposite end of the hall, down by the elevator, the office that's sitting down there.
Thank you.
Just had somebody walk up to my door. I was looking for one of the nursing instructors. And that's what, and so a lot of organizations have chosen to do that, as Michael said, that they spell by the domain names for the common misspellings also, to keep that from happening. So I buy tickets occasionally, but I'm lucky if once in a long while I actually win $2 on the ticket. I was hoping when it got up to the $1 billion there, that when I bought 2 tickets that week, that one of the tickets would hit. I was really hoping that the 2 tickets would both be the winners, and so I could take home the whole amount. But no luck. I'm still sitting here teaching your class, so you know I didn't win that all. So they go through and they mention about the different type status codes on it. Y'all are quite familiar with seeing the 404, which you notice is a client error, that it couldn't find the page because 404 is page not found. I think it's 404. 403 or 404, for some reason I just mixed that up in my head. Okay, thank you, Heather. I was going 404, but then I'm going, is it really 404? One of the big things about on HTTP attacks, the web-based ones, make sure your browsers are always kept up to date, and also keep your OS up to date. There's been several times there's been attacks along this line that went through Windows, and that Microsoft went, well, if everybody had updated their machines, the security update we put out there 6 or 8 months ago, they wouldn't have been affected. And nobody that had that update on it was affected. But all the people that hadn't done the update got hit by whatever it was. That's one problem I do have with them some here at school, is they are slow on putting updates on our machines. Because they want to test them all, and then they take months to do it. And I'm going, with 0-day attacks, you've got to put these updates out there immediate, because if you don't, you're not protected. So I just hope we don't get hit by anything. Iframes are a thing that quite often you won't see used, and some browsers don't want you to use iframes, and that's frames within the page, and where you've got a page set up and then they got stuff inside of it. It was a really popular thing to do back in the early 2000s. And actually there's some, my pages actually a lot of times end up using iframes, because I'm doing forwarders from another spot, and it actually, where it forwards through where the domain name's kept and where the page is actually kept to 2 places, it actually wraps it inside the other as an iframe. So they mention things to stop on the iframe attacks, because they'll stick advertisements in there, point you to other pages with the outer iframe and so on. Notice down there they say, ensure web developers do not use iframes. And so I really don't use them, but they're there anyway. Then they mention others too, where it watches out for malicious pages and everything else that you got on there, and so you got different ones on that. Not real sure about this one on the 302 cushioning. That's a new one they've thrown in here. And that is sending it to a different location instead of where it should. And so again, they're saying use your web proxies to block malicious sites, and actually your firewalls will do that for you on it. So be sure to use the different ones. The Cisco umbrella would be on the high end, so be aware of that. Domain shadowing, that they'll compromise a domain and then they'll route things to different spots and hijack the logins and stuff like I was giving you the example of just a minute ago. Email obviously is a major problem out there. Attachment attacks, where they send an attachment to you and you click on the attachment and it proceeds to take off. Ransomware is loving to use those attachment-based attacks. Email spoofing, where they send you an email and it appears to come from a different address than where it really came from. And that quite often they want you to send money to some spot and that you send it to the wrong place. And I've seen both of those recently. And then the spam email, where they send the email with all kinds of advertisements and malicious files in them. What's interesting is the ones now that actually don't even put links on them, and that when you reply that it takes you to where they want you to do. And then that the SMTP server that lets anyone send email, and that's actually used out there, but it's then being used maliciously. Back to the DNS, also one that is a good one to use, but places keep trying to spoof off different addresses from it to get you to the wrong DNS. The Google does provide a DNS server that everybody can connect to. So if, for instance, the DNS server for Comcast goes down, which has happened on me before, because that's who I use at home, and so then I can't do the domain names. If I just change my DNS setting to 8.8.8.8, that's 4 8s, then I'm using the Google one instead of using the Comcast one, and actually I put normally as an alternative down there, so that if the Comcast one's not working, then it'll go and use the Google one instead. And if you watch the addresses on them, that they quite often are. Now, we had one come through the school yesterday that was actually a legitimate email that had all kinds of markings on it that looked illegitimate, because it didn't tell us exactly who it came from. We thought it was the bookstore. It turned out it really was, which is our private company. But they didn't really identify themselves. They misspelled the name of the school. Instead of Georgia Northwestern, it was Georgia Northwest. It had her name on it, but then it didn't tell who they were. And it said to click on this link that they had created, they told me they'd added some more books for me. And I didn't click on the link, because also their email link that it said if you need some help, they had one address showing and it was a different address it actually went to when I hovered over it. And I sent it in, and a number of other people apparently did too, and the security people at school told us no, it turned out it was legitimate. But I'm going, boy, are they setting themselves up for problems. And so, in doubt, when you get something, if you're in doubt on it, look up the phone number or their web page and look it up. Don't use what's in the email, and contact them and see if this is something legitimate from them or not. Because they're continuously figuring out ways to try to get people to do. One that went through the District of Kiwanis, a number of the districts across the U.S. recently, it appeared to be from the governor. They used the governor's name, sent it to different ones of us that are district officers, but they used a different email address, but they got one that was close to his and sent it out to us telling us that he was out of state and he needed some gift cards bought to give to some kids' hospital or whatever. And we work with kids. It's a big thing Kiwanis does. And there was a person that fell for it and went out and went to buying and bought several hundred gift cards for him. That he never got in any event because that they really weren't bought and that they weren't sent to him. So you got to watch on those things that they're out there. And I got to remind people on Saturday morning on that because I'm speaking to the Georgia Kiwanis on the same thing again. And then they mentioned about the database attacks. There's code injection. If it sends, you can send code to a website with the code built in there, and it will proceed to write over the other code if they don't have their stuff set up correctly. SQL injections where it sends SQLs on it. And the way SQL works is you can actually have a command within a command, and that's what it's actually doing here with SQL injection, is that they've built a command and that it then sends information it shouldn't send on it. There are ways to set, if you set up SQL Server and MySQL, to stop those things from happening where it can't do code injected inside of code. But if it's not set there, they can steal all kinds of information from you. And everything's kept in databases out there now. So if you can get into the database by adding some on the command and produce information for you and give you sensitive information, you've got it made. Cross-script citing, XSS, that's a tongue twister. That it's using scripts to then match in, just like we were talking with the SQL basically, and that it's sending stuff in and gets them to produce information that you shouldn't be getting into either. But when you get these different emails from places, pay attention. There's some going out now that appear to be from Amazon, saying that you ordered something and sent it to someplace and that it was an expensive item and that you shipped it someplace else, ordered it and for it to be shipped somewhere else, and that they're wanting you to reply, click on their link and then give them your credit card number so they can cancel the order for you. And it's not an Amazon site that it's going to. I've seen them hitting on some others. There was another one floating last week, and I can't remember the one last week. FedEx does them also. What my article was on that I wrote Sunday. I can't think of what in the world that is. What was it that it's a longer one. I may just send that one to y'all, that article, because it was some other way that they're getting into them. So then they show you about how to attack a MySQL database, and how to recognize the attack in it. And so then that's the module. But do be aware of the SQL injections. I've got just a minute, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to my email real quick. Let me stop the share. Oh, here we go. I'm going to stop the share at this point, but I'm going to go to my email real quick and see what it was I wrote on just on Saturday night. Matter of fact, I think I still got, or did I put it out on my webpage? I think I did put it out on my webpage. Here we go. Oh, okay. This one was actually Amazon also that sends out an email, and not an email. This was a case of a text, and I got one of them on Saturday. And it was a text that told me that I had won second place in an Amazon contest, and that I had to run a set of earbuds from them, and that they wanted you to reply back to them on it, to click the link and to get the delivery on it. Well, if you did, I know good and well they're going to ask you tell you they need your credit card to pay for the handling charge or whatever, and then they had your credit card number and they were going to go to town with it. But it came from a New York phone number and stated Amazon : congratulations, Dwight. You came second, 2ND, in March's Amazon EarPods raffle. Click this link to set delivery. Well, it didn't read real well on it, and then the link was to something that was nothing to do with Amazon. So you'll get them in all kinds of weird ways out there, that they're coming through on the text also. And Kelly, that's right. They tend to, that's the approach they're going to do normally, is that they're just doing regular phishing attacks. They're casting a net and see what all they can catch. Sometimes it is spear phishing that they do, and that's when they direct at specific things, which is what I was suspicious of. That one from the bookstore looked to me like it was a spear phishing attack here on the school, on certain ones within the school. It's amazing how many people fall for them. And like, hey, I just ran into that one in the Kiwanis district, and it was a person that I would have thought would have known better, and he bought $500 worth of them. I told him, I said, if you bought them on your credit card, you're probably in good shape. Contact the credit card number and they can cancel it, and they'll probably get you all your money back. Won't get it from them, but they'll cover on it. I said, you did it with your debit card, do it as quickly as possible. Contact them. I said, and you'll probably be out of $50 on that one. Debit cards are not covered like credit cards. Credit cards, if it's not your charge and you report it in a timely basis, then federal law says they can't collect it from you. Debit card says even if you report it in a timely basis, you can be responsible for up to $50 of it. It's not reported in a timely basis, you're out of luck. Now, timely basis is a hard one to define. Most of them are defining after you get the statement, because most of us are not going in and checking our accounts every day. And that reminds me, I got to find that piece of paper. I just got to log into my account because I'm trying to get a PayPal thing set up correctly. I got to find that sheet of paper again. So that's 16 and 17. It's 2 o'clock, so I'm going to let y'all go unless y'all got some questions for me. Looks like y'all had some good conversation here. Hopefully everybody has popped something into the discussion over here. If you haven't, pop something in real quick for me. Any questions for me? And I see somebody else. We had a couple other people come in, so hold on before y'all start logging off, because I do not have Heather on the list. So let me see. There's 6 of y'all in here, and I don't have that many. Brittany, I had. Heather, Joseph, I don't have. So let me get him. Kelly, I had. Michael, I had. And Nicholas, I did not have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that should be it then. Okay, so I should have everybody now. Good, Nicholas. I hope that did help. Stuff does cross over between the different classes, so hopefully that got a little clearer. And Heather and Kelly, thank you for y'all's notes of letting me know exactly what it was where I was commenting on, so I had it straight. Um, so take care of that all. Talk to y'all later. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and log off.